This whiskey is one of the best selling single malts in the entire world. What I will say is I find a lot of whiskey enthusiasts ignore this, and I don't think they should. Let's talk about it. This is the Glenfiddich 12, so it comes in at an impressive age statement of 12 years. Just think, like, what were you doing 12 years ago? And that's the amount of time this was in a cask. So the really fascinating thing about the Glenfiddich is that it's foundational to the history of Scotch whiskey. That's because they were the first distillery to open a visitor centre, and they were the first to sell their whiskey as a single malt. See, back in the day, most distilleries, you know, they would sell their whiskey to kind of big blending houses and they'll blend it up. But Glenfiddich were like, I actually think this would be great standing up on its own. And I think it definitely is. So let's jump into the tasting notes. So for me, the Glenfiddich is a very light and approachable whiskey. It's one that I often recommend to beginners, especially if you're someone who's never drunk whiskey neat, but it also works great in cocktails. It works great on the rocks. And yeah, for me, Glenfiddich is that classic apple and pear notes, a lot of orchard fruit and this kind of vanilla in the background. So I'd say for me, this whiskey is one of the most consistent whiskies. If you bought a bottle 15 years ago and you bought a bottle now, I'd say if you put them side by side, they would be very similar. And that's why a lot of people call this a perma-shelf whiskey. You buy a bottle, it finishes, and then you go and get the next one. In a world where there's all these different releases and experimentation, sometimes you just want to go back to a classic. And I would say this is the most quintessential Speyside single malt whiskey, the Glenfiddich 12.